First of all, they ended up firing or asking us to decide if we want to be fired or retire on my part, or just resign, leave the job, get so many months of pay. And that's how Rick and Kelly and Keith were all, you know, involved in that with me. Not Paul, not Jim Hocking, the diving coach. And the problem with that is anything that we did and any decision that we made, we would make of a Monday morning at our meeting. So that if we made a decision to do something and it was not correct according to NCAA standards, then in essence all of the coaches should have been involved in the whole process. Problem was Paul Nelson had been there for the shortest amount of time. The other problem was that Jim Hocking and I were pretty much somewhat at odds.
The diving coach?
We lost Kevin McMahon, remember? Because Jim Hocking did not pay any attention to Kevin McMahon, and this is an NCAA score. Okay. So Jim and I were at odds over that. We had, how many violations did they show in the first list of violations?
I think 60.
That's the number that sticks in my mind. What did it come down to in the end? 5?
6. 5 or 6. Was for getting Vlad housing.
No, not Vlad. Oh yeah. Val.
Housing with the Latvian minister.
Yeah.
Second one was for Val continuing to use that housing even after he had started attending the university. He was not attending the university.
But anything that had to do with money had to do with money that either myself or the other coaches had. And that always flowed through the secretary for swimming. She was never interviewed. They never investigated money and receipts that would have been put in her hands that she might have held on to for 90 days. To some athletes that were unhappy. And I've had some conferences with some of our U.S. athletes who felt that they weren't being treated fairly because they didn't get as much money as the international athlete might be getting. Hey, he wins, he gets money. You don't win, you get a lesser amount. I mean, that's the way it has to be. And that's exactly the way it was. It was, you know, it was a complete lockdown as far as us having any assistance in dealing with this situation through the university. A complete lockdown insofar as the community was concerned relative to any news statements or anything that was being said and carried by the media. Nobody was on our side. Remember when they interviewed me, I was down on campus for something, and a reporter came and interviewed me, and I said, you know, I said, hey, the university has not upheld their part of supporting us as, you know, we go through this thing. Ombudsman should have been available to me. Never was available. I went to the personnel department, they couldn't do anything. You know, it was just, it was They separated us out, isolated us, threw us all in together, and then we, you know, retaliated in the best we could. We were telling,
at first, or like
in close contact with those kids, and we said, you've got to ask, and that's the way the rule read, you've got to ask for permission to talk to another school, because they're going to drop the program, and you don't want to wait until they drop the program to make those contacts, but you have to ask for permission. And they said, no, we've asked that question, and they said they're definitely not going to drop the program. Bingo. The program was dropped the next year. It was unconscionable on the part of the University of Nebraska to treat those athletes in that way. I mean, you know, it was totally unfair to them. And they brought them all into the press room, both the men and the women, and they announced that they were going to drop the men's program. What happened to the women? They didn't want to stay. They wanted to have that many violations so they could go to the public and say, hey, we got 60 different claims against this team and the coaching staff. You know, there are some big bad things that are happening here, and we're going to do everything we can to save the university from all those bad things happening. And none of the coaches got a sanction. I didn't get a sanction. Keith Moore didn't get a sanction. Kelly Nordell didn't get a sanction. None of us got a sanction out of that. And yet the university got a sanction. If money was any question in there at all, and they never interviewed Gary Foraker, and that whole department was changed, do you think that there weren't some big problems that probably were outside of the swimming team with the other teams, the other programs? But they were upset, I'm sure, that they're the ones that got sanctioned on the whole thing, and the coaches didn't. Now, so I hold no animosity towards the university. It was a great institution. It was a great place for me to go to school. All three of my children have graduated from the university. One of them still works for the university. Another one works for the system, teaches at Chadron. So, yeah, I don't have any animosity towards the university. Nebraska has a history, and as far as I'm concerned, the ongoing history of swimming and diving, both gender, is an ongoing process. Men's swimming and diving in particular, I feel will have a future at the university, and only rightfully so.